All right, guys. My name is Tom Woods. We're going to go and get started. We're at the top of the hour. As others find their way in, they can find their way in. But we're going to get rolling here. I appreciate you guys taking time to spend some time with us today. A couple quick admin things before we get diving into too much here. What I've done is I've muted everybody in the meeting. Excuse me, not to be rude, but only just to in case someone's mic's open and it can sometimes, mess up the audio for everybody. So I got you on mute, but if you have a question, you can always unmute yourself if you want to. But I would encourage you, if you would, to use the chat function here in Zoom. If you have questions and, even as they come up or comments, anything like that at all, just use that chat function. And then here's what we're going to do. We're going to talk and kind of go through some instruction stuff here for about 25, 30 minutes. And then we're going to shift gears and do some demoing of things. And at that point, we'll open things up. We'll start addressing the questions that have been put out there and all that. So that's kind of what to expect as we go forward. So go ahead and use that to record your questions. And otherwise, I appreciate you taking time. Before we start diving into the actual meat of what we're going to talk about today, I always like to kind of give a quick background on who we are and where we're coming from so you kind of understand. Again, my name's Tom Woods. I'm with R2 Sports Technology, which is a company that's been in existence about, I think, 11 years now or so. I think we started back in 2014. I'm located out here in Colorado, so it's like 9 in the morning my time on Saturday. I know it's a Saturday morning, guys. Thank you wherever you are for taking time on a Saturday morning to join us. I appreciate that very much. But I always like to tell guys this: I am not a football coach. I've never been a football coach. I don't aspire to be a football coach. I'm not gonna be a football coach. I'm a data guy. So I've done a lot of work for the last, I started a company 25 years or so ago. It does a lot of work in the aerospace and defense world. So we do a lot of work with NASA programs and things like that, have for decades now. Actually, it's crazy. We also do a lot of work in the financial world, a lot of data work related to equity and options markets, that kind of thing. A lot of work in the energy fields, number of different places, a lot of data and predictive data work that we do across multiple industries. But about 10 years or so ago, I've always been a football fan and love football, but we got into conversations with some football coaches and started to understand more about what you guys do with film data. We always knew you guys, I know film's always a big thing. You guys watch film and film. But when we saw exactly what you guys do with it in terms of storing data, entering data into film systems, all that kind of stuff, it became apparent that some of the data work we do could be beneficial to coaches. And so we started providing some applications to coaches. Okay. But know this, I speak as a data guy, and I will speak as a data guy today, even though we've seen a lot of things about data or football, and we're going to talk to you about what we think you can do with your data to make it as powerful as it can possibly be for you. But I always defer to coaches. And, I have not walked a mile in your shoes. And there are certain things that I may say that may cause you to roll your eyes and say, I don't know what he's talking about. That's entirely possible. So I would always defer to you. There's one thing to see something in data. It's a whole nother thing to do the things you guys are trying to do, which is trying to get a bunch of young guys to do things right and execute well and win a football game. I get lumped in with them, but I aspire very much to not be one of these data weenies who's just like, if the computer says do it, coach, who's never played it down, doesn't know what he's talking about. So I don't believe in that at all. But I know that you guys care about data. Obviously, you wouldn't even be here in this session right now. But a lot of you guys and a lot of coaches we've seen and have worked with over the years, obviously they love data. They believe in what it can do for them. So given that, there's some things you can do to condition it right to really make it be really powerful for you. And that's what we're going to spend time talking about today. Second thing real quick. I started a company called R2 Sports Technology. We are a for-profit American business. We work with football teams. They give us money and we do things for them. Okay. Now, so that's true. And we do like doing that. But I want to kind of set the framework here first. This is not a glorified infomercial. We're not going to spend 25, 30 minutes with you and then say, okay, guys, 1999, sign here. We can do this. That's, at the end, I'll show you something we do that if you want to see it, you can, but you certainly don't have to. My intent here is if we never cross paths again, if this is our only interaction ever, I think what we share with you today can help you be better, can help you win more games. Okay. So with that said, let's kind of dive into it. I'm going to share my screen here. I promise we're not going to hit you with a bunch of PowerPoint slides or anything like that. There is one slide with notes that we'll kind of work through together. When we're done today, we'll send you this set of notes. We'll also send you some sample files that we're going to look at and stuff too. So we'll send some things along to you when we're done. But again, as we get rolling here, if you got questions, things, use that chat function. Let's kind of dive in. So this is a session we do every spring. The intent is, we call it breaking down film with a purpose. And what we do, here's kind of the main crux behind it. And this is, again, speaking from my experience talking with football coaches. This is not even just true of football coaches. This is true of all of us in our lives everywhere. We become creatures of habit very quickly and easily. And we find ourselves doing things because we just do things, and that's just what we do. And in the world of football coaches, I see it all the time. I'm like, every coach, I say every coach, almost every coach, believes in film work and in breaking down film. But a lot of times, if you ask them why they're doing it, really, it's just they're on autopilot. I mean, I am a football coach, so I break down film. If I didn't break down film, I wouldn't be a football coach. So I got to make sure I break down film. And so it becomes this thing that you just do. And you may have get stuck in a rut of, you may have been coaching for 15, 20 years, and we do the same thing every year and have been, we'll do it again next year. I want to challenge you for a second to kind of throw a wrench in your brain a little bit and challenge yourself to answer this question. Why are you breaking down film? What are you hoping to get from it? Because I think what you have to do, if you can clearly establish what the point is and what you're trying to get out of it, then that really, really influences how you break down your film and what it looks like. And what we're going to challenge you with here there are three distinct purposes we believe your film data should do for you. And if you want them to do that, then you got to structure your film data in a way to allow it to happen. Okay. And it's the first of these purposes I would contend to you is a diagnostic purpose. So if you're breaking down your film, if you're like, I'm going to take time looking at film, breaking things down, one of the things it should do for you is help you diagnose where you're broken and how to fix it. What is and isn't working, how do I fix it? That's got an obvious kind of self-scout flavor to it, but we see so many coaches who the frequency that they look at their own data or the data that they're looking at has no diagnostic ability. And what happens is coaches, you continue to persist in an error, and you'll go, I mean, if you're a high school coach, you might have 10 to 11, 12 games, you make the playoffs. You're a college coach, you're playing 11, 12 to 13. But what happens is you begin to persist in an error and you never recognize that something's wrong and how to fix it. So you just keep going, and you can waste a season. I see teams waste a season doing the same thing over and over again that's failing. Your film data should have the ability to quickly show you, hey, this isn't working. Either get off of it or get it fixed, but don't persist in it. Okay, so that's one. You need to set it up in a way that you can diagnose what is and isn't working and how to fix it. That's one. The second purpose, this is the one that if I talked to 100 football coaches and asked them, why are you breaking down film? 90% of them, the answer would be in this vein here, which is to predict what the other team's going to have, what the other team's going to do. So a lot of time is spent, if you think about how you break down film, you're coming in, you're playing a team this next week and you're a defensive guy, you're looking at what that offense is doing. You're trying to anticipate and pick up on tendencies that you can recognize so that you know how to counter what he's going to do. It's a valid, very good purpose. Okay. And trust me, when I talk about prediction, all I do in not just in football, but in aerospace and in finance and in energy markets, all we do is predict all day long. It makes my eyes gloss over. So prediction, I'm a big believer in being able to predict. But when it comes to football, I will say this, that purpose is one of the most difficult to make impactful. It's probably the least efficient thing to be pursuing. And the reason I say that, if you think about it for a second, again, we're looking and trying to pick up on a tendency. And the theory is, okay, I see what he's going to do. I can react in time and I head him off of the pass. I already know how to take advantage of something, right? But the realities are difficult because you're in the middle of a game, it's the second quarter, the team they're moving, the play clock is ticking down from 40 seconds. And some of the most powerful things that can tip you off as to what's coming show themselves really late, like only a couple seconds before the snap. And then you're hoping that some 17, 18, 19-year-old kid will recognize it right and react right. The odds of nailing it are not great. Now, when you do, it can be very impactful. That's why I still believe very much in the ability to predict well. But what we find is that most coaches are so focused on this purpose and this purpose alone, they're spending all this time, effort, and energy on the thing that is probably the least impactful thing it can do for you. Okay. It's going to have it's going to make the least amount of difference ultimately because of how difficult it is to put it into practice in reality. Okay. So but it is a valid purpose. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying don't, but I'm saying that there's a unhealthy emphasis on that, I would say, in the things we see with our coaches we work with. The third one is this, and this is the one I think that is the biggest miss, is that your film data, if you set it up right, you break things down right, it should very directly help you implement a plan that puts you in the best possible play calling position in any situation. That's really, because I think even if you talk about what we were just saying about with prediction, you're hoping to be able to predict right so that you can see it right, so that you can be in the right call to stop it. If you set your data up right, you can skip the prediction side or piece of it and automatically know in a certain situation that you're in the best possible call. You don't have to predict it and get into it to be in the right call. Your data, if you set it up right, can tell you it doesn't matter what the guy does, you can know you're in the right call in a given situation. And that is the most powerful thing I think you can do with your film data. From a play calling standpoint, it can make you vastly better. Okay. Now, so these are the three big purposes. A, show me where I'm broken, how to fix it. B, where I can, make good, valid, strong predictions. But three, put me in the best possible play calling position. That's ultimately where you want to get to. So the challenge now is, what does your film data need to look like to allow that to happen? And that's what we're going to kind of get into. We're going to shift gears now, get a little bit mechanical, if you will, and talk principles in data that allow these three things to actually show up and happen for you. Okay. Now, and these principles we're going to talk about, these are not, this is not unique to football. Okay. This is data 101. And again, whether I'm, working on a, option trading application for a financial institution, or whether I'm talking to a high school football coach, what you do with your data, it's global. It's the principles in data. Now, we're going to talk how they uniquely apply to you guys in football, but these are key. The first one is this. And some of these, as I share them with you, you may say, oh, okay, wow, thanks, Captain Obvious, for stating what I already knew. But they're not necessarily exotic or anything like that at all. They're pretty straightforward. But the first one is this. You need to adopt a universal program-wide data language and structure. What do you mean by that? You need to standardize what you call things. And two things, really. You need to standardize, A, what you're going to break down, what you're going to include in your breakdown. And then B, you need to make sure that the language you use when you break things down is the same all the time, everywhere, at all times. What's really powerful, and we'll show you here in a few minutes, one of the most powerful things you can do with your data that helps you get in the best play calling positions and see what's wrong and all that kind of stuff is the ability to click data together. If I have data over here, if I have like opponent scout data and I have some self scout data, there's some real power in being able to click the two together. If you want to click things together, they have to be in the same format. Okay. It's like putting a plug in the wall. If one's got 3 prongs and one's got 4 holes, they're going to go in, right? So you have to connect the two. So if you're the head coach or you're the person responsible for breaking down film, I would encourage you in this time here before the season starts to ramp up to really step back and just maybe take a sheet of paper and just start jotting down. Here's what we want to include: A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. And here's what we're going to call things. Dun, 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 dun. If you have a formation that you call bandit for some reason, let's say, you can't have one guy breaking down the film, putting your data in saying bandit, 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 and some guy over here who looks at it and says, I don't call that bandit, I call that twins left or something, right? Because now you're haywire in your data. So there's got to be consistency. And in a few minutes, we'll break out. I'll show you some actual data examples of what we're talking about. But commonality is huge. One language, one structure, use it everywhere. And I will, with this caveat, I would say that principle applies to your offensive and defensive rooms. Because I do know that on a lot of teams, those might as well be two different worlds. right? So within your offensive staff, what are you breaking down and what do you call it? Within your defensive staff, what are you breaking down? What do you call it? And keep that consistent everywhere. That's the first big thing. Without it, you can't do much of anything else we're going to talk about. Secondly, is this: break down your data in layers. Okay, so let's spend a minute talking about this here for a second. We encourage coaches, you need to plan each week, game plan, prepare. Your film work really should be conceptual. You need to plan conceptually and implement specifically. What we see a lot, I'll see two extremes when we see data come from guys. There's one extreme where we get a guy send us data that has almost nothing in it. They'll send us something where it's like, we'll get like down, distance, yard line, and run pass. And I'm like, it's okay, it's good, but there's not much else there. So sometimes it's so thin you can't do hardly anything with it. But then a lot of times we'll get this other extreme on the other side, where we'll get this data that is so detailed and so specific that it's almost unusable that way. There's this, I think there's kind of a, it's not just true in football, but it reveals itself in football too. There's this notion, I think, that people think the more complex and detailed they get, the smarter they are. There's almost like this badge of honor of like, oh, I spent 8 hours breaking down film and I got down to I have the motion is it was the Z going from A to B. There's all this tremendous detail, which as a data guy, I have respect for because I love seeing lots of data. But what happens is the more complex you get and the more specific you get, that is the enemy of sample size. And what we need to try and do is find patterns in data that we can predict on and that we can plan around. And to do that, to see enough significance in data, you have to have enough sample size for it to be meaningful. And when you get too specific, you blow sample size out of the water. Because now I have all these very specific motions, let's say, but any one of them only happened 2 or 3 times in my sample set. And I really don't know that I can pick up on a meaningful pattern at that level. So you're better off. So again, here's these two extremes. The middle is where you're most effective. Plan conceptually, group your data into higher level categories. Think about the concepts that are being used, the concepts you're using offensively, so on and so on. And if you enter when you think conceptually, it increases your sample size inherently. You don't have to break down more data. You suddenly have bigger samples at a conceptual level than you had at a detailed level. So you get better sample size without breaking down 50 more games, okay, which is a benefit. But it's also, you can move a ton faster because there's a whole lot more meaning. If I'm clicking through looking at what an opposing defense is doing, right? And I'm looking at their blitz packages or something like that. If I'm trying to get too specific with what the exact blitz was, that may be overkill. I may not be able to use it anyway. I'd be far better off ticking through the film and just saying, how many guys did they rush? 3, 3, 3, 4, 4, 4, 5, 4, 4, 4, 5. That in itself, I would pick up on patterns at that level where I would be able to know, okay, here's the situations where they're sending 5. I may not know what type of blitz specifically it is, but I probably wouldn't be able to do much with that anyway because it's too specific. But I would at least now start to know, I'm really sure I'm not going to see pressure here, or I am. And that is the concept that is right. You're a smart football coach. If someone gives you the right concept and says, hey, in this situation, running inside zone plays is the right answer. Okay. You knowing that, getting the concept right, heck, you probably have 15, 20 inside zone running plays you love. You can go work on which triple XY banana play call you want to use, but get the concept and the family right, you're going to do far better. So you can go faster, you get more sample size, and the risk of overkilling it is it's a big risk. Okay. So layers, concepts, start with concepts. If you have the time and resources and everything else to go into heavier detail, by all means do, but don't skip to detail. Okay. Think conceptually, go faster, get sample size. All right. Third one. This is a big, this one, today again, to me, this is the biggest miss I see by far. And it's the one that I think can really flip things for you a little bit. It's this mantra that we tell our guys all the time. If you control it, you have to include it. That's the biggest thing. So what we mean by that is this. If you think about for a second, because most coaches that we work with, they tend to be, again, our inclination is to gravitate towards the second purpose up here. Predict, 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 predict. Because of that, you tend to only look at what the other guy's doing because you're always trying to predict. Okay. The problem is you don't control anything at all that he's going to do. So, like, if I'm an offensive coordinator, I'm looking at an opposing defense and I'm looking at what's that defense going to do. If you're just thinking predictively, you open up your film, you start looking at the film, and your eyes gravitate towards the defense. What was that defense doing? What is he going to do to me? When's he going to blitz? When's he going to do this? You're trying to predict what the defense is going to do, right? The problem is that come game time, when things are happening in reality, you have zero control over any of that. None, none. You have no control at all when he's going to blitz you or not. You have no control over what coverage he's going to be in, no control over what front he's going to show you at all. So we spend all this time all week looking at data, looking at things we don't control. And so we get there and we hope that we guessed right. Right. And it creates a lot of stress too. We spend our whole week trying to make sure we can guess right and pick up on what's going to happen. What you need to do, and I would say nothing is all or nothing, but in terms of preferring your time and what you're looking at, again, take that example. I'm an offensive coordinator looking at an opposing defense. My eyes should be on what the offense was doing first. If I have more time, then I'll go look at the defense. But I need to look at what do I control? Now, I know I'd be looking at offenses that are not my own. I'm looking at somebody else's offense working against this defense I care about, which is why this second principle is so important, that you have to do things conceptually, because I can't look at somebody else's offense and say, oh, that's exactly our play call or not. So it doesn't lend itself to being specific. But I can look at that offense and I can look at what it's doing conceptually, which can be global. And if I've got a common language and all this other stuff I'm doing, I can look and say, okay, that formation, it may not be the exact formation we call ours, but that's 2x2. That's 2x2, 2x2, 3x1. They ran outside zone. They did quick pass, screen, just concepts. Looking at what they were doing conceptually, then what you have is now you have insight into the things you control. So I don't know what that guy's going to do to me, but I can look at my data. My data can now tell me, I don't know what he's going to do, but I know that he can't stop counter running plays in this situation. So I don't know. I don't know what front he's going to go. I don't know, but I know he can't stop this. And if he can't stop that, I have control over that. I can serve that up to him all day. I can see that he hates to eat broccoli. And so I'm going to keep feeding him broccoli because I can see it. Instead of trying to guess what he's going to do, I'm looking and saying, I know what he hates. And I also know if I've got commonality in my data, I can go look at the same situation in my Self Scout at that conceptual level and say, oh my God, look at these concepts. We are really good running inside zone in this situation. And look, he's really bad stopping it. So I don't care what he's going to be in. I just know in this situation, pound him with inside zone because he can't stop it and we're good at it. That revolutionizes your play calling and things start to improve and get better. And it frees you up as a coach because you start to look at, instead of your week being spent like, oh, what's he going to do? Am I going to be able to predict him right? You spend your week, you can know on a Sunday or a Monday from your data that, hey, here's the situations where I'm good, he's bad, he can't stop it. You just spend your week practicing and preparing those. You conceptually can see where you need to be in certain situations, get the concept right, and then work your specifics into that and practice that all week. But too many times we see most coaches, because they're obsessed with predicting all the time, they tend to only look at the thing they don't control. And then you go in hoping to guess right. When really, if you put more emphasis on getting the concepts right and less on trying to guess what he's going to do, you'd end up doing far better. Okay. And we see that. We do a thing with well, it's kind of interesting. We don't waste too much time on this, but we evaluate all FBS coaches, offensive and defensive play callers each year because we can see all this data on those guys. And so we can see to what percentage of the time play callers are operating from a good position where they're in a strength on a weakness versus being on a weakness on a strength. Okay. And the data it's striking, it's not shocking. You would expect it to be true, but the numbers bear it out. When a coach is operating from a strength on a weakness, in those situations where they can see that beforehand, I mean, the yards per play is almost 2x. And so the question is, well, obviously no coach, I would, if I asked all you guys, I don't think any of you guys would suddenly say, oh yeah, I would love to operate from a weakness on a strength in this situation. Nobody would say that. But when you look at data, coaches do it all the time. And they do it all the time just because they don't know. They didn't see that that was the case. They were too obsessed with trying to guess right that they said, oh, let's try this. And it turned it out to be a weakness on a strength, and their performance is like whoosh, way down. So the key, if you set your data up right, is you can know ahead of time already where the landmines are, so to speak, and plot a map through the minefield that says, okay, don't step here in this situation, step here, and you can navigate your way through, and teams perform better. Okay, let's do this. I'm going to shift gears here a little bit. I'm going to bring up some example data files just to kind of show you, illustrate those 3 points. And then we'll kind of open it to questions. I'll show you kind of some of the things we do here and all that. This is we'll send you this file too. This is dummy data. It's kind of loosely comes from some of the data we've seen in clients we work with. This first one we're looking at here, this is a tab. It says this would be the offensive coordinator looking at an opposing defense. Okay. Now, let me just illustrate. This is, you got to take this for what it's worth, because this is, again, this is where Tom, the data guy, is talking, not a football coach who has, really knows what he's talking about, right? I'm just a data guy here, but I'll tell you my perspective, my opinion on it from a data standpoint. You see this first section here, I kind of have it in a light gray. This is the standard kind of stuff you would see here. Things like, the quarter, down, distance, yard line, hash, runner, pass, gain, loss. That's some of this low-hanging fruit stuff. That's like the basic stuff, right? That basic stuff needs to be there. It sets the context of what's happening in a play, it sets the situation. If I was, take the case of a high school coach, let's say, listen, I can respect the fact that nothing is free, right? So, if you're working with Huddle or DV Sport or Quick Cut or whatever, one of these film systems, if you can afford it, it's probably worth it to have them do that breakdown for you. Just saves you time, and it's kind of brainless. And if not, get a volunteer or somebody to get this data in. But this needs to be there. This is kind of the low-hanging fruit, kind of the given. Okay. But beyond that, I'm taking the case of an offensive coordinator here. Tom's recommendation is, you see this next set in blue? I would set a few, not many, a few conceptual categories about the things I control. That would be in terms of prioritization. I would say, okay, what do I control? And give me some very general conceptual things that characterize the things I control. So we're not going to go too detailed. Like personnel is pretty easy. Formation, family, not formation, because formations get too specific, but just give me some level, some categorized level up above that's like, okay, maybe something as simple as 2x2, 1x3, 3x1, something global and contextual. Okay. Then something about the play concept, not the specific play call. Don't get too detailed. Keep it general. This was counter. That was outside zone. This is a quick pass. This is a screen. Something simple and conceptual. Something directional. Was it left or right? Or maybe you have a simple pass zone, something like that. But just these concepts, they need to be things that are global, so that when I look at my own data or I look at anybody else's offense, I could assign it no matter whose offense I'm looking at. Okay. That's step one. And I'll tell you, if I was breaking down film for somebody, I had very limited time, which I know probably a lot of you guys do. And they told me, hey, you get here, you can spend 1 hour breaking down film each week, right? And that's it. You can't spend any more. If that was me, I would say, okay, well, give me all this stuff, Huddle, so I don't have to mess with that. And I would just do this. If all I did was those first 4 rows you see there, first 4 columns you see there, as an offensive coordinator looking at an opposing defense, I haven't even put in anything about the defense yet. I didn't put in what coverage are in, nothing. I just looked at the concepts the offense was running against it. I contend to you that many of you would be far, far, far better off just stopping there. Because what that would allow you to do is set up situations here. Look at second and medium, and I'd be able to see, look at these concepts are ones that he can't stop. And these are concepts that he's really good against. Or these are looks that give him trouble versus looks that don't. And I would suddenly conceptually be able to tell, okay, I know I know what's going to give him trouble. And that is more powerful than knowing what he's even going to do. Now, the next thing I would do, again, based on time, but if I had to stop there, I could stop there. I'd be dangerous already. Now, real quick, this is a defensive coordinator looking at an opposing offense, same thing. Give me the basics, and then I'm looking at a couple conceptual things that I control, global conceptual things that I could get from looking at anybody's defense. Okay. So it might be personnel, front structure, just odd or even, or whatever you want to call it, just couple general categories. Coverages, don't get too elaborate in what the actual coverage name is. It may just be cover 1, cover 2, cover 3. It could be man zone, anything, just the concept. I mentioned this before, maybe just rush number. How many guys were coming? 3, 4, or 5, something simple. But that alone would be huge for me if I did nothing else. Because if I'm a defensive guy, I would now know that in these situations, this offense hates cover. They can't handle cover 2. They're terrible against cover 2 in this situation. Great. I control that. I can go serve that up to them. So that would be step 1. Okay. Well, step 1 is get the easy stuff. Step 2, just what you control conceptually. Third priority would be what's your opponent doing conceptually. So then turn your eyes to the other side of the ball, but turn your eyes to the other side of the ball conceptually. Don't go hog wild into detail yet. Again, same thing. What are the concepts that the opponent was showing? And then after that, if I had time, then I would go crazy on details if I had time. Okay. But if I did not have time, I wouldn't even worry it too much because so again, like I said, all the way up through here is going to tell me an awful lot about play calling and how well I can do. When I add this piece to it here at the conceptual level on my opponent, that's going to give me some powerful things I can do predictively at a conceptual level. I'm not going to, I mean, the odds of me predicting what his exact play call is going to be too hard. But you could probably do some things pretty dangerous with predicting what direction he's going to go. Okay. Or, if it's going to be inside zone or outside zone. And that's enough to make a difference for you. Okay. But that alone, just working conceptually, has huge implications for you. So let me give you a quick example here because what you can do. Now, let me toggle back over here. Here's this offensive coordinator opposing defense. Forgive me. This next tab would be that same offensive coordinator, and here's his self scout. Okay. Now, I will only say this. I encourage you guys. This will be one of those data guy doesn't know what a football coach has to deal with comments. I acknowledge it before I even say it. Okay. But I would tell you, man, I'll just say it. You should self scout every week. And you should now, and I know how hard that would be, right? Because you guys are thinking about, oh my God, I could barely do my other film work. I get it. You should do a conceptual self scout every week. That's why I say be concept. You can move fast when you're dealing with concepts and not worrying too much about specifics. Because ultimately, I mean, that is you. That is what you control. I mean, if you're going to do anything else, you would want to be as good as you can possibly be showing up instead of worrying about your opponent first. You can't do anything about him. Knowing something is great, but man, too many times teams only self-scout when they hit that bye week, and then it's this partial thing, and they have nobody to do it. And by then, it's probably too late. Things are already hosed up, and we don't know how to fix what's wrong, or not. You can't see it. Man, you should obsess over looking at how do we do. Is there a pattern emerging? What's not working? We need to know now. I don't want to find out at the end of the year that I couldn't do this. Need to know now. But this is a self-scout. Here's what's crucial is the same fields that are listed along the top here need to be the exact same thing. This is what we talk about with common data structure. Same fields you have in your opponent's scout. If you're the offensive staff, these are the things we're breaking down. It's true of our self-scout. It's true of our opponent scout. Now, it may be that in some of these things, you don't fill everything in. That's okay. But it's the same fields and it's the same language. If we're calling it 3x1s and 2x2s over here, then we're doing the same thing over here. Okay, because what I can now do, I'll show you, we'll wrap up here in a second, guys. I don't want to keep you guys too long here. I'm going to filter this data for a second. If I can, I got something blocking my screen here. Let me just put a filter on this for a minute. So let's take this as an example. Let's look at Let's look at 1st and 10. I'm going to filter on all my 1st and 10s. This is my offensive coordinator looking at an opposing defense. Okay. So here's my 1st and 10s. And I might come in here and say, okay, let's go 1st and 10. Let's go on the left hash. We'll specify a specific situation. I got 42 of them here. Okay. So now if all I had done again is say I'm looking at the opposing defense, all I did was put in the concepts that the offenses were doing against them. Okay. I could come in here and pick a play concept. Let's say inside zone. So now, because I've grouped these things together, I've got 15 inside zones. Now, if I've gone too detailed and skipped the concept level and went straight to specific play calls, and then I'm trying to bring up a specific play call, I may only have 1 or 2. But because I grouped it, I've got 15, which is meaningful. So I've got 1st and 10 left hash, 15 times this offenses have run this against the defense I care about. And I can look right here and say, what's the average gain? Yeah, they're giving up 9.1 yards a play to that. Okay, so this is a defense that now you can see in here, some of these were big gains, some are little, but still they're struggling. I can see this already. This defense, forget even what they're doing. Haven't even looked at them yet. Don't even care what they're doing. I can already tell that on 1st and 10 on the left hash, they stink stopping inside zone. So that's a huge piece of information for me because I control that. The second thing I would do then, I'm going to go to my self scout. So I'm seeing he's got a gaping wound there that he does not defend that well. Well, if I've got common structure, common language, I can come over here to my self scout. Let me bring the same thing in. 1st and 10, left hash. So here's me. And I'm going to go to that same language, same structure. What's my inside zone look like? Well, I've got 17 inside zones that I've run in that situation. And my average gain is 6.2. I got some bad plays and good plays in there, but it's 6.2. 1st and 10 left hash, I'm averaging 6.2 running inside zone. 1st and 10 left hash, this defense is giving up 9.1 running inside zone. That's good for me, bad for him. I haven't even looked at the defense yet. And I can already put something on my call sheet that says, hey, man, 1st and 10 left hash, inside zone is the concept. You're a smart enough coach to go decide which one of your inside zone plays you love the most, but that's what finds its way into your call sheet. And you spend your week setting up situations so like, okay, here's a 1st and 10 left hash. We're practicing pounding our inside zone, being as good as we can. Let's be even better at what we're already good at because we know this guy can't stop it. I'm suddenly a better play caller. Instead of me not knowing, if all I did was spend my time looking at the defense and trying to guess what front he's going to be in and maybe, oh, okay, I'm going to run outside zone here. I'm going to run counter here. We're missing what's screaming at us saying, hey, boom, 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 pound him. He can't handle it and you're good. And that is what lifts everything in your program. You start to average more yards per play. Nothing's absolute, but as you prefer yourself in the direction of the things that show you that advantage, you're going to do far better. Okay, listen, here's what we'll do. So again, just to put a bow on this, what I'd like to do is I'm going to take a second. I was just clicking through Excel to show you kind of how to piece that together. One of the things we do, we create these things that are called dashboards, which basically just take that data and put it in this kind of, it's almost like an MRI. It can show you, you can move really fast with the dashboard. I'll show you that for a second if you want to see it. Again, I'm not trying to hyper sell you anything here at all. But just to put a bow on what we've talked about again, I encourage you guys to take a second, think about why you're breaking down film. If you're only thinking about prediction, I encourage you to think about diagnostics and play calling. That influences how you break it down. Really simplify things, guys. Simple, universal language and structure. Think conceptually. Prioritize conceptual breakdowns. Detail if you have time. Otherwise, just get the concept right. You're gonna have more sample, and you're gonna have more sample size to begin with, and you're gonna move a ton faster. Thirdly, this is just the absolute to me. If you control it, that should be your most important thing you break down first. You control it, you got to include it, because if you do it, then don't worry about what he's doing. You'll know how to beat him. Okay. All right. That's it. We'll also start dealing with some of your questions here. Chip's out there. You can kind of help me with some of the questions that are there, but I'm going to bring up real quick to you. Just put your eyes on it for a quick second. This is an example of a dashboard. And the principle behind a dashboard is just that the old adage that a picture's worth 1,000 words. What this does, just like we saw those Excel files full of data, all a dashboard does is it just packages it into this visual platform. We use size and color to tell a story. So if you look at this here, you see all these dots on the football field. Each one of these dots is a play in the breakdown. A blue dot is a pass, a gray dot is a running play. So you kind of get a sense of where teams were operating from. But you'll see the other sections in here like personnel and formation, family, and play concept. Those are all different fields in your breakdown data. And the way you interpret what you're looking at here, in a given section, the bigger the box is, that's the more frequently something happened, basically the strength of a tendency. So if I look at, look at defensive personnel down here in this breakdown, this tells me that defenses were in base more than they were in nickel. Why do I say that? Because base is a bigger box, 68% versus 32%. Their most common play concept is inside zone because it's the biggest box. Deep doesn't happen very much. Okay, so the size of a box, I mean, it screams at you what they did and didn't do a whole lot of. The color is offensive efficiency, so it's offensive success rate. So as offenses are when offenses are performing poorly, the box will be red, orange, yellow. When offenses are performing well, it starts to become green and blue. So between size and color, I can just look at something and say, oh, I can see what he likes to do, where he's good, where he's bad, where he can hurt me, where he can't. Then lastly, it's all interactive. So if I was looking at this is an example of an offensive self-scout. So let's say I'm doing this is again, if every week I can get just a conceptual breakdown in there, I could start to diagnose myself very powerfully. So look at run pass down here. So if just looking at the colors, this offense is better running the ball than they are passing the ball. Why? Because this is orange and this is green. Okay. So they're not very efficient throwing the ball. They're much more efficient running the ball. If I wanted to diagnose my passing game, say, what's going on with my passing game? I can just click on pass and this will filter everything. So now here's my passing game. Okay. And I see all this orange bad colors down in here, but I do see a couple things. My best passing down is on second down. I got a green box on second down. I throw the ball better when I'm on the left hash as opposed to the right hash or the middle. I'm starting to see things about what's going on with my team. I could say, what am I doing? My passing game when I'm on the left hash, suddenly it's not as bad as everything else. My intermediate and screen passing game is actually pretty good when I'm there. I'm good when I'm throwing out a 12 personnel. You can start to see this stuff instead of trying to forensically piece it together with Excel or with reports out of Huddle that you have to customize and all that kind of stuff. So a dashboard can be real powerful. If we look at it let's look at this from a play calling standpoint again. So this is again a offensive self scout. If I toggle to opponent scout, again, common data, common structure, common language, I'm going to see the same thing, but I'm going to see it from my opponent's perspective. So I'm looking at the opposing defense, and I can look right here, look at this defense. This defense is good against the pass, but they cannot stop the run well at all. And if I wanted to probe on that a little bit, let's take a situation like we just talked about. Let's look at first down. So here's first down. Let's go 1st and 10. So I can dial up a situation that I care about. So look at 1st and 10. I would prefer to be running against these guys because they can't stop the run. Green box versus yellow box. Look at that inside zone is the concept, man. Run inside zone, 7.8 yards of play, pound them. Direction, pound them to the left. They can't stop it. What can I operate from? You can operate from almost anything you want. Just don't operate from 1x3 because that's where they're good. Anything else they can't handle. And I can start to see again. Don't even care what he's doing yet. Just can see that, I'm putting my call sheet together. I'm like, okay, 1st and 10. In the run game, it's inside zone. I like being 3x1. So anything 3x1 inside zone I can run is a thing of beauty. He can't stop it. I'm good at it. Okay. All right. Let me do this. So that's it. We'll send you when we're done. Like I said, we'll send you the notes and stuff. We'll send you a link too. We call it the sandbox. There's like a site out there. It's got a dashboard in it. You can go play around with the dashboard if you want. If you're interested at all, we'll send you the information. You can send us your data. We'll put it in a dashboard for you free of charge. Send you a dashboard back if you want to play around with some of your data. So by all means, take advantage of that if you'd like to. But I guess what we'll start doing is wrapping up here. I'll take a look at the chat questions. If you guys need to run, I totally get it. Thank you for taking time with us. really does mean the world that you would take some time on a Saturday. We hope again that what you've seen here is something that can make you think a little bit. And if you can implement some of these things, I think could, I don't want to get too, wordy, but it could revolutionize the way you're doing your film data. And it could, for the first time, maybe make your film data actually be something that directly impacts how well your team is performing. Okay. Instead of just trying to guess all the time, let it show you what the right thing to do is. Okay. All right. With that, if you got to go, by all means, go. Otherwise, if you want to stick around, stick around. I'll answer questions. Feel free to come off mute if you want to throw questions out. I'll kind of tick through anything we see in the chat. But thank you for taking time. Appreciate you guys. First, one of the questions.
Coach Wells was asking about that.
Coach Wells asked a question about how we know what data columns to add. So you saw that example that's out there too, but this is just addressing that question for a second. How do you know what to add? That's a hard one. I can't necessarily answer that question for you. I mean, we have recommendations, The thing I encourage you is think conceptual, conceptual, conceptual. Think about, if you go and you look at your playbook and you have all these very specific things in there, specific play calls that you guys use, right? You should challenge yourself to say, okay, what bucket would I throw that play call into? How would I aggregate these at a higher level? If you haven't already done that, you probably already have. But if you had to put them all into groups, how would you group them? It's that next higher thing that to me should be, it's got to be present in your data. And again, you're trying to group them in a way that's global. So if I was looking at somebody else's offense, I'd be able to identify the same thing. Or if I'm looking at somebody else's defense, the way I've characterized it, I could see the same thing. I could identify it globally. So that's the big thing I encourage guys to think about. Take your specific information you have, put it into a category that you could globally identify anywhere. If you saw some other team's data, you could identify it. That is what needs to be there if it isn't there already. So in terms of what columns should you add, you should add those columns. Get to that conceptual level and add it. Okay.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Tom, I really appreciate the answer. That helped out a lot. Thanks
appreciate
a
the
lot.
comments outside of that. I will throw if there's anybody out there you can, again, feel free to come off a mute if you would like to ask a question directly. But otherwise, thank you. See if there's any other specific questions in here that I don't necessarily see.
Yeah, I don't see anything specific.
That's it for the questions, guys. Again, thank you for your time. I appreciate you, and look for an email from us with the notes, the link to the dashboard page. We'll also send you a link where you can go back to this recording, watch it again if you'd like to at some point. Okay. Have a great weekend, guys. Appreciate you taking the time. I'm not going to kill the meeting. I'll sit here if someone wants to chime in with a question, but otherwise, take care. Have a good one.